Professor, Gabriella is having issues getting into her computer.
Okay.
So she said she'll be in a minute.
Okay. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Let me turn my off. Is yours on? Is your volume on?
Miss Marvel,
Yes.
do you want the students that aren't in your class to type in the chat their name, or
Pardon me?
did you want the students who aren't in your class to type in the chat? Because I'm from Miss Kershaw's class.
Yeah, no, it will all come up in the recording. I get a report at
Okay.
the end of at the end. It will have everybody's name in it that's here, and I will send that off to Professor Kershaw.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome to everybody. Chanel, there you are. Okay. Just trying to check my guys in. Yesenia, I got you. Tamara. Got kind of a little bit of a flu going on, so I apologize for my cough. Yeah, let's just give it a couple more minutes. I need to check real quick to make sure Professor Kershaw opened up quiz number 4. Hang on. Oh, good. I'm glad I checked. It's not open. Okay. Okay, just still letting people in. We have a lot of students today. Samantha, are you in yet? I don't see Samantha. Brianna, I don't see. Serena? Don't see. Who else am I missing? Shanti? There she is.
I know. There you go.
Maria, did I see you come in? Maria.
I'm here.
There you are. I thought I saw you. So I'm just missing one, two. I'm missing still 4 students. So, oh, there's, she goes by Reese. Okay, so I've got her. Okay. Well, welcome to all of Professor Kershaw's students. How are you all doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good. For a Friday of week 6, you guys don't need to don't worry about don't worry about putting your names and your campuses in the chat. Don't worry about it. I get a report at the end of the at the end of the class that goes through log on times, log off times, and all that. So don't worry about it. If everybody could get on camera, that would be great. I'm looking at several ceilings or walls. So if you can get on camera, I would appreciate it. Okay. We're just waiting. Oh, I've got 2 pages here. Let's see, Peyton, you got your camera on? There you are. Okay. Cool. Tequila, Aaron. Yep. Got you guys. Yep. Okay. So welcome to week 6. You guys made it halfway through. Woo! Yes. After today, you're going to be halfway done. So I always like to poll now that I have a different class added. Give me your midterm evaluation. Are you liking this class? All right, let me rephrase that. Are you learning a lot about community nursing?
Yes,
Are you learning things that you never thought were part of public health and community nursing?
Yes.
yes.
Do you see why in week 1 we talked about, well, at least I talked about with my class, why this particular class is at the end? Why is it the end of your program?
Because it's
Because
too
it kind
much.
of puts different perspectives, kind of puts it all together.
There you go. Patrick, what were you going to say?
Because it's too much.
Because too much.
Too much to handle.
No. We're pulling everything together. Right?
That's right. Everything
Yeah.
together make it too much. Right?
Well, I'll just go with the first part of what you said.
Okay.
Okay. We're pulling everything together. Okay, you think about it in the community. When you're out in the community, nursing and public health nursing, your age group can be anybody. Your client can be anybody, all the way from newborns, all the way up to the elderly. Right? So
Yes.
what comes into play here? Pediatrics, OB, med-surg, pharmacology, mental health. You guys haven't had mental health yet, correct?
No.
That's next term. Okay. We're
Some
pulling
of us
everything.
had it.
We did.
Okay. All right. So I'll include mental health, because once you get into the community, you have all different age groups and you have all different diagnoses, right? Think about it. So all of these previous classes and the content you learned in these classes all come into play in this class. Because you could be pulling from pediatrics, pulling from med-surg, pulling from mental health to care for certain groups in the community. Does that make sense?
Sure.
I mean, that's why this is at the end. It's pulling everything together, and now it's time to apply this knowledge. Okay, remember the next gen. Next gen is critical thinking, right? And then taking that critical thinking and knowledge and applying it to best practices, best clinical judgment. Okay. And that's how your HESI and your NCLEX are going to be designed. They already are designed. So now we apply it. Okay. So I know it's a lot. But I told my group at the beginning, even if you work at a hospital or rehab or clinic, whatever, you're always going to be in communication with some sort of community nurse or public health nurse, whether it's case management, whether it's discharge planning, whether it's trying to set up equipment at home, whether it's teaching, you're going to have interactions with the community. Think about if your patient is discharged, where do they go? Home, right? Most of them go home. Do they just go home, or will a lot of them need care when they go home? Care in their homes, care in the community. So this is what this class is all about, is pulling everything together and being ready to take care of anybody in the community with a variety of needs. All right. Okay, so what are we covering today? Anybody know? What are we covering? What content are we covering today?
I don't know if I read the wrong thing, but I was reading occupational health.
Okay. What else?
Chapter 8 and chapter 9.
What?
Chapter 8 and 9.
Yeah, what are they though? Environmental health?
Barriers to learning.
Barriers of health,
Mhm.
barriers, the learning barriers.
Yep.
Communication, patient education.
Okay. Before I jump into the content, we're going to go through the content and then we're going to do the quiz. I don't know who has the background noise, so maybe you guys could, whoever's got the background noise, if you could mute. I'm hearing my name as an echo. Okay, thanks. Everybody has got this. Maybe I need to, let me just mute whoever's not on mute and see if that helps. Okay, perfect. Everybody has the exam 2 study guide, right? Right? Everybody has that. Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay. All the reviews are done. I'm going to resend. The instruction is for us as instructors, if nobody shows up at your review, you don't do a recording. Okay. I on Wednesday had nobody show up at my review. I had Dorinda come in, but we just kind of covered a few things. Actually, we didn't cover a whole lot. We were just more talking about the exam. So I didn't consider that a review. Plus she came in 15 minutes late. So I was just about to shut down. Anyway, Professor Ford did hers last week. She didn't have anybody either, but she did a recording. All right. So I got an email from a student today that said that hers had no sound. So she has gone in and reposted it on YouTube. So after this class, I will post hers. Okay. Because she really didn't have to do one either because nobody showed up, but she did. I did not do one because I didn't have anybody show up. And then Professor Kershaw did one yesterday and she had people show up. So I have a recording for her. So I'm going to send you both of those recordings after class. Okay. So you'll have.
Yours
Yes.
are Wednesday at noon, right?
What?
Yours are on Wednesdays at noon, right?
Yeah, I already had it this Wednesday at noon.
Oh, no, I know.
We're in
I
class.
thought I went to
Yeah,
the
we're
one
all in class.
Okay.
yesterday.
We're
I
in
was gonna
class.
say that some of us during all of the reviews are
Yeah.
basically taking place while I'm in
Okay.
a class.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
the
so
one yesterday I went to because that's the only one that works for me. But hers
Okay.
are good.
Yeah. I'm going to be, we got everybody's schedule from Dean Brown. And so we are going to be looking at changing up the days and times for exam 3 review and for the HESI review to try and better meet your needs. Okay. So when we come up with those days and times, we'll let you know. Okay. So we're going to try and do that for the last exam and the HESI. You have the study guide. Okay. So as always, I would highly suggest that you start from the study guide. Okay, the study guide is a compilation of several things. It's an excellent summary. It covers lecture, it covers book reading, it covers notes that you get on a weekly basis. It covers your homework assignments, pardon me, such as the discussion questions. So start with the study guide as a good kind of springboard. If you get through the study guide and you're not understanding some of the content or concepts on the study guide, then my suggestion is you go back and you either listen to that part of the lecture or you go back to your book reading that addresses that content and reread that. Okay, and see if you can get a better understanding. All right, so do your due diligence. And then after you have listened to the recordings, you have gone through the study guide, you have re-reviewed the information, and you're still not understanding a particular topic or concept, reach out to your instructor and get some tutoring next week. Okay, you guys don't take the exam until a week from today. All right, so you have a whole nother week to start preparing and see what you're not getting. And by the middle of next week, if there's still some issues you're not understanding or you're not comprehending with the content, reach out. Okay.
Miss,
I have lots.
Does every teacher offer tutoring? Like, even if I'm not in your class, can I get tutored by you, or is we have to go to our teacher?
You don't have to, but you should go to your professor for tutoring. We all do it. We all do it. So you should be able to go to your professor. If that's an issue, then just reach out to me.
Okay.
Reach out to me. But I'm happy to tutor. But the only thing, my only thing about tutoring is you got to show up. Okay. I've had, the no-shows, it makes me crazy. So you got to show up, number one, and number two, you have to do your part. Okay. Which means going through the study guide, making sure you either understand or don't understand, going back and re-reviewing that information. And then when you come to me for tutoring, hopefully it should be, a very small list of things that you don't understand. Make sense? So you got to do your part as well. All righty. All right. Before we get started, what questions do you guys have?
Is your quiz taken at the end of the class? Because I know our class in the back. I didn't know how you were doing it.
We all do it the same way. We do it at the end of the class. Yeah. Yep. Okay, questions. And I just turned on Professor Kershaw's quiz. So you guys are all set. When we go to do it, you'll be ready to go. Okay. All right. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to pull up our week 6 notes. Well, actually, since I have the modules pulled up, let's see what we got going. Okay, there is, even though our notes cover occupational environmental health, there is a module reading on occupational environmental health. It's a couple of videos. They're actually really good videos. So please take the opportunity to review these videos. What is occupational and environmental health? Okay, so it goes through. Oh no, this doesn't have the videos, but it's an overview. The notes are much more specific, but here's a good overview of it. Okay. Let's see. This week you do have a set of NCLEX questions this week, and remember, please submit 50. One batch of 50. Okay. Don't do 2 25s or 5 10s. Okay, and don't submit screenshots. All right. So NCLEX, you have NCLEX this week. And then what do we have coming up next week? Oh, next week your group project is due on Wednesday. And we have our exam. So everybody should have their groups. Professor Kershaw, do you guys have your groups yet?
Yes.
Okay, great. So everybody should be working on those. I did receive a couple of emails this week regarding some communication issues with some of the groups, at least in my class. So I pushed those emails back and said, you know, a couple of people asked me if they could turn in their parts separately. No, it's a group project, and that's why we do a group project. Okay, so if you're having issues with communication, let me know. And please let me know the students that are not responding so I can reach out to those students as well. Okay, make sense? Okay, so we're covering occupational health, environmental health, barriers to learning, and reinforcing health education. And we've listed out in your notes what the readings are. Okay, so you have a few pages in chapter 6 of fundamentals. You have the entire chapter of chapter 9, patient education and health promotion, and then you have the Canvas core, the Canvas, which I just showed you in the module. Okay, so when you think of, let's just do environmental health. I'm sorry. When you think of environmental health, what do you guys, what's environmental health? What do you think about?
What you're around, what you're exposed to.
Right?
Health in the environment.
Oh, that sounds crazy.
Mhm. Health in the environment. What else?
The environment someone lives in, the state that they're in, what's around them.
What are some potential risks in the community? Environmental risks in the community. What do you think about? Do you think about air pollution?
Water.
Think about water contamination. What about soil contamination?
Yep.
What about food poisoning? Right? Think about it. We know that environmental hazards are responsible for over 1/2 of the total burden of disease. Okay, they contribute to over 80% of communicable and non-communicable diseases and injuries. Okay, environmental health is determined by a few things: genetics, socioeconomic status, and environmental exposures. And you think, why would socioeconomic status influence environmental health? Well, think about living in poverty. If you have individuals or families or groups and communities living in poverty, they're much more likely to be exposed to environmental hazards. Maybe crowding living conditions, maybe living near a hazardous waste site, maybe having poor quality foods available, or hazardous jobs, living in older homes that have lead, and maybe kids going to school in older buildings that have lead, right? So think about it. Just think about your own zip code, where you live. I live near a major highway that goes right through Colorado. Okay, I live less than a half a mile from this major highway. It is the thoroughfare from the East Coast to the West Coast. Okay, so that's an environmental hazard in my community. Think about where you live. Think about all the different hazards. Do you live near a transportation hub? Do you live near an airport? Do you live in an industrial, agricultural, say trains going through with the potential of derailing and spilling chemicals? Think about it. What's in your community? What's in your community? What's in your zip code that you worry about with regards to environmental risks? And that's a question for everybody.
Where I live, I'm around a lot of like fields, and and then they do like they call a crop dusting.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I worry about that.
Yeah, think about that. That's an environmental risk. Great, Tamara, thank you. What's in your communities?
We have a landfill
Landfill? Sure.
that
Yep.
gets really, really smelly,
Yeah.
and you could smell it for like miles. So that's probably not good to inhale.
Right. Yep. What else?
Pollen off of certain trees that bloom at a certain time.
Yep, yep. So my point is that each community that we live in has different environmental risks. Did anybody ever see the movie Aaron Brockovich?
Yes,
What's that movie about?
it's about, I don't remember, contaminated water.
Water contamination.
Yes, and she was fighting with the corruption and, yeah, it was very interesting. Yeah, it was causing
Yeah.
cancer.
That was an environmental disaster,
Yeah.
as was Flint, Michigan, several years ago with the water. Right? These
Yeah.
were environmental water disasters. Okay. So how do you assess? How do you assess an environment? How do you assess people in the environment for what their risks are? So we like to know where they live, where they work, where they go to school, or maybe where they kids send their kids to school. And then we also want to do a dietary history. But remember, we're the community nurse. So instead of assessing the client in the hospital, we may be assessing the family in the community. Why do we want to do a dietary history? How does that play into environmental risks?
Because they put pesticides on like the fruits and vegetables and the mercury levels in fish.
Exactly. Exactly. And what if they're fishing from the local stream or river or lake and that water's contaminated or has high levels of mercury? Okay. So when we do our community assessment with regards to environmental health, what we do is called a windshield survey, right? Which is essentially going through the community, going through the boundaries of the community and just checking it out. Okay. Are there factories? Are there waste sites? Are there dump sites? Is it a major transportation route? Like we talked about. What's the age of the housing? Is it old housing? Is it new housing? Are there pest problems? Is there trash that's sitting around that's not being picked up? Like Tamara said, in rural areas, do they spray for pesticides and herbicides by plane? Okay, lead is a big issue for as an environmental health risk. They consider lead-based paint being used for all homes that were built before 1978. Okay, so young kids, they eat paint chips, right? So your windowsills are peeling or whatever, they eat paint chips. Old school buildings, old daycare buildings. Okay, all the codes have been updated and there's no more building with that. But in the older housing units, the older schools, daycares, there still may be lead there, right? And what happens with exposures to lead with kids? Respiratory, right? Let's say a pregnant mom is exposed to lead. Potentially complications include premature birth, learning disabilities, right? So we need to be mindful of that. Think about everything you have in your home right now. Think of all the pesticides you use in your homes, cleaning supplies, gardening supplies. Think of all the stuff that's around your school, the kids' schools, your workplace, your garage, right? I mean, just think about it. Just think about all the things we're exposed to. I, for one, take for granted that somebody's looking after the water. Somebody's trying to make the air healthier. Somebody's trying to keep the water healthy or water at normal levels of, what am I trying to say? Somebody's, if I go to a fast food restaurant or if I go to a drive-through, I just make the assumption that everybody in there is following the guidelines, right? With food preparation, food handling, food cooking, right? Do you guys? I do. I mean, it's just things that, I mean, I'm much more mindful of it now, but we just take so much for granted with environmental health, environmental risks, environmental exposures.
Since we learned about hepatitis, I've been worried about who cooking the food.
Exactly,
With A&E.
exactly. Anybody else have concerns about environmental risks in your community or where you work?
What about having animals inside your house? Dog, cats, birds, things like that.
Yeah, I mean,
When I was pregnant with my daughter, they told me not to clean cat litter.
mhm,
I
mhm,
forget what's in it, but something can
mhm.
affect the baby.
Even certain reptiles, they ask if you have in your home.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, there's just so many risks that we don't, pardon me, that we don't even think about. They estimate that 30 million Americans drink water that does not meet the EPA's safe drinking water standards. That's a lot. You know, you can go on Environmental Protection Agency, right? Everybody's heard of the EPA. You can actually go on their website and you can put in your zip code, and they will spit back to you a list of environmental risks in your community, which I think is pretty interesting. Right? We know that the quality of the water is tied to the quality of the soil and vice versa. Right? And we also know that the quality of the soil is impacted by chemicals put into the ground. Pesticides, herbicides, fertilizer. 50% of Americans live in areas where the air quality, 50%, where the air quality does not meet the national standards. It's considered that motor vehicles, cars, are the greatest single source of air pollution, followed by burning of fossil fuels, waste incineration. And then think of all the complications from air pollution: asthma, respiratory disease, cardiovascular disease, cancer, immune system disruption, reproductive health problems. And then we know that indoor, not just outdoor, but indoor air quality is affected by several things: carbon monoxide, dust, mold, pets, Patrick, pests and pets, right? Maybe personal care products, tobacco, smoke. There's just so many. There's too many to name. This is the tip of the iceberg. Think about food contaminants that include pathogens: salmonella in chicken, Campylobacter in eggs, E. coli in beef. Right? So we talk about the precautionary principle. Here's the precautionary principle number 9: using products and practices that do not harm human health or the environment. Right? When science is limited and it cannot be proven that a substance does not harm human health, this cannot be used as a reason to postpone preventative or remedial action. Right? So action needs to be taken with the slightest inkling of harm. Okay? So environmental health is, the last one, number 12. We as consumers are entitled to consumer confidence reports, or another term is right to know. Okay, we are entitled to have those reports given to us that supply drinking water. We can also access the information about air or water pollution by our zip code. I already said that, but we have access to that information. Okay, through the EPA. So in summary, with environmental health, environmental health is critical to the health of communities. Right? If you are a community health nurse or a public health nurse, environmental risks are of primary concern. Okay, and you need to be able to help your community manage those. I want to skip down here and go to occupational health. I'll come back to health education. What is occupational health? What's the practice of occupational health? If you're an occupational health nurse, what do you do?
Prevent illness.
You what?
Just to prevent illness.
Where?
Don't you work at like factories and like companies like Amazon?
Yeah.
Because here we have like Amazon and Purdue, stuff like the big factory warehouses.
And you probably have an occupational health department.
Yeah.
Yeah. So occupational nursing has to do with the workplace. It doesn't matter what the workplace is. Like Chanel just said, factory. Could be a hospital, could be a factory, could be an industrial plant, making cars, whatever. Could be a nuclear waste site. Could be a school. Okay, it has to do with the workplace. Occ health nurses work in the workplace. They are responsible for the health and the safety of the worker. Because every employer wants their workers healthy and at work, right? They don't want them at home injured or sick. Does that make sense? So everybody that's had to apply for a new job in the last 10 years, and I'm sure you've all been through it, you all have to go, everybody has to go with a certain set of screening, right? Immunizations are checked. What else is checked? Health history is checked. Training. What else do you go through for new hires?
How much you can lift.
How much you can lift. The occupational health nurse is required to know job descriptions. So think about working in a hospital. Think about how many different roles there are. Think about how many different job descriptions there are. And so in larger organizations, you typically have an occupational health department. Okay, they need to be aware of what risks does every job description have on the job. And so during your orientation or during your new hire training, you are receiving information and training on whatever is deemed to be at risk. So say you're lifting. Okay, you're going to be taught or go through a training about proper lifting. Let's say you're working in a loud plant. You're going to have to go through training on protecting your hearing, making sure you have the right equipment, right PPE to protect your hearing. What if you're working in an environment that has significant heat risks, like a farm or agriculture, or cold risks? You're maybe working in a meat plant and you're working in freezing temperatures. So I guess what I'm trying to say is every job description everywhere has certain risks. There's no job that's safe. I didn't mean to say it like that, but no job is without risk. Okay, so the occupational health nurse is responsible for knowing what the risks of each employee are. Okay, and her job is to educate. Well, her job is primary, secondary, and tertiary interventions. Primary on the front end is all your new hire training, where we're trying to prevent something before it happens. Right? So that may be universal precautions. It may be PPE. It may be mental health coping strategies. It might be, think of what are some other things that would be preventative? Maybe health and wellness, lifestyle balance, good nutrition, right? Those are all primary interventions that maybe your occupational health department does. And remember, they're about health promotion too, right? Yes, they do deal with injuries, but they're also health promotion. So they're going to try and keep you as healthy and balanced as possible so that you can function in your job. Okay, so secondary, let's jump to secondary. They know who their high risk employees are, right? Whether they're obese employees, whether they're employees with heart conditions, whether they're employees with diabetes, whether they're employees with a history of back pain. So they're trying to identify which of their employees may be at risk for certain things. And with secondary, it's all about early identification and early intervention. Make sense? Tertiary is something has happened. There's been an accident, there's been an illness, there's been a surgery, and they're out of work. So now the occupational health nurse needs to work with that employee to bring them back to work safely, whether it's limited duty or changing over their job description or putting them in a different role until they're back to full duty, working with the physicians, but something has happened that they're not at work. Now the occupational nurse works to get them back to work. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep.
Right. So the occupational nurse delivers health and safety programs to workers, focuses on promotion and restoration of health, prevention of illness and injury, and protection from work-related and environmental hazards. So we just talked about a few things: health promotion, exercise, fitness classes, smoking cessation, nutrition, weight control, stress management, work-life balance. And the one thing I'll say about that is think about the enormous mental health crisis we have in the country, where many people are suffering from mental health diagnoses from stress, whether it's financial or personal or family, whatever. It's estimated that people work a third of their life working. People are going to bring this to work. They're going to bring their stressors to work. Maybe some manage them better than others. But that's one of the roles of the occupational nurse as well, is to recognize who's at risk. Right? I mean, think of all the workplace violence now that we see. Okay, these are people bringing their, kind of unchecked, horrible mental health issues into the workplace, right? Prevention of illness and injury. So what does she do? He or she monitoring for hazards in the work environment. We just talked about that. Maybe employees are working with toxic chemicals, noise pollution. Maybe they're standing all day. We talked about extreme temperatures, radiation, electricity, crowding, stress, burnout, exhaustion, and nanotechnology. Maybe people are working with complex chemicals. They're exhausted, they're burned out. Okay. These are all the potential risks that employees have everywhere, depending on where they work. Right? We know that noise pollution we talked about is a common physical hazard leading to hearing loss. Right? So occupational health nurse needs to make sure that those employees are protected. Back pain, we talked about. Back pain is a common complaint, due to lifting. Workers complaining of back pain should
Everything is in the G.
Workers that are complaining of back pain, what do we want to do? We want to reevaluate them. We don't know if the back pain is something from outside the workplace or inside the workplace. Right? So if somebody is coming to the occupational health department complaining of back pain, maybe we want to reassess how they're lifting. Make sense? So we know that every work site needs to have protective equipment. available for any hazard that exists, whether it's hearing protection, eye protection, clothing, monitoring devices for radiation or other exposures. Okay. Has anybody ever heard of OSHA? What's OSHA?
Basically, like set the regulations and stuff
Safety.
in the workplace.
OSHA is the
Safety
Occupational
It's-
Health. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say occupational health, environmental.
OSHA is Occupational
Health and
Safety and Health
Safety.
Administration. Has anybody ever participated or knows about OSHA visits to your facility?
Yes,
They can be
Yes.
terrifying,
very much so.
very much so. OSHA can show up unannounced at any point. Okay, they're gonna show up if there's been maybe an unexplained death, maybe an accident. They're gonna show up anyway. But OSHA's responsibility is enforcing the occupational health standards. So the OSHA guidelines for a hospital is going to look different from a bank, or different from a grocery store, or different from a long-term care facility. Every workplace has OSHA guidelines. So they are responsible for making sure the employers are enforcing the occupational and safety guidelines. Okay. I mean, I'm sure everybody's heard of an MSDS form, right? They're all over your work sites. What are they?
The medical safety data sheet.
Right. Which are they? It's what do you have on site? What kind of chemicals? Where are they stored? How are they stored? What if they leak? What are we doing? Okay. That's all part of occupational health. Okay. And the other role that occupational health nurses may play is counseling and crisis intervention. Right? We talked about the mental health piece. Besides counseling workers about work-related illnesses or injuries, they often counsel for issues such as substance abuse, psychosocial needs, wellness, health promotion concerns, or other health or work-related concerns. And everybody that works in a large institution should have access to an EAP. What's an EAP? You should have it.
Environmental something,
Employee assistance programs,
employees.
right? So that if you're struggling and want to talk to a counselor, usually the occupational nurses departments and nurses are responsible for managing this.
Yeah.
Right? So occupational nurses actually play an extremely important role in organizations. They're the ones that oversee keeping employees up to date, trained, minimizing risk. Right? So maybe for the obese, they're doing walking programs or weight reduction programs. For the employees who smoke, maybe they can offer them smoking cessation. I mean, look at some of these big insurance companies. Look at all the primary interventions they offer. Right? Health and wellness, nutrition, smoking, they offer so much now, trying to move towards preventative. Okay. So that's occupational health nurse. Does that give you a better understanding of occupational health nursing? It's all about the workplace. All about the workplace. Okay, let's talk a little bit about education. We as nurses are going to spend most of our career in health education, right? Whether you work as a clinician in the hospital, whether you work as a patient educator somewhere, whether you work in the community or public health, educating is what we do. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Education. That's what we do. Where does everybody turn to when they have a medical question?
The doctor.
Higher than that. The nurse,
Or the nurse.
right? I mean, think about it.
Everyone call me for
What?
everyone in my life just calls me for all their medical questions now.
Exactly. Exactly. We're the go-tos. All right. So patient education is one of the most important roles as a nurse. We use education to promote health, to prevent illness and injury, to improve health-related behaviors, to enable patients and their families to care for their health conditions. Right? We know that when patients take personal responsibility, hang on one second, guys. Hang on one sec. I've got to, oops, sorry. Sorry about that. I had to quiet down a child. Let's see. Let me share my screen. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay. So our education is intended to teach clients how to take personal responsibility for their own health. Right? Because the more educated they can be about their health, the more effective they can be at making change. Okay, and maintaining that change. One of the biggest challenges in health education is motivation. Would you agree?
Yes.
How do you motivate? How do you motivate somebody that is not motivated to learn how serious their illness is, how it affects their family, affects them, affects their long-term health? How do you motivate somebody that doesn't want to learn or doesn't want to take personal responsibility?
Very
What's that?
hard.
Until they're ready.
What are some strategies? You're the nurse. You're it.
You gain their trust, you gain the trust of the patient.
Therapeutic communication, sitting and listening,
Mhm.
actively listening.
And you try and convey to them how serious things are, right? And present to them short-term and long-term outcomes, right? It's hard. It's really hard. Okay, think about all the different kind of groups we potentially are educating. You know, when I was in the schools, I could start out my school day doing education in the preschool, talking about hand washing. I could finish out my day at the high school talking about drug prevention. Right, so think of all the different groups that we educate. Okay, maybe we have a group of visual learners. Maybe we have auditor. What do you do with visual learners? What do you do with auditory learners? What do you do about maybe developmentally delayed group? My point is that you're going to be teaching lots of different groups, lots of different patients, families included. You have to incorporate culture, values, beliefs, practices. in every part of your education. Right? There's we all possess three different domains of learning, all of us. Okay, there's cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. We all possess it. But each of us has a primary way that we like to learn. For me, I like the psychomotor. That's hands-on. Okay, let's just go through the three of them. Cognitive. Your cognitive domain is your thinking part, right? To be able to hear information, read information, understand it, memorize it, and use it later to solve problems. Okay, then you have your affective, which is your feeling. Okay, what are my attitude? What are your attitudes about learning, your beliefs, your values? These affect your ability to learn. I call this kind of the open-mindedness, closed-mindedness. And I like to when I talk about affective, I think of best practice or evidence-based practice. Right? Have anybody ever worked with somebody that says, you know, I know they just figured out a way to do wound care better for the diabetic patient, but you know what? I'm okay with what we've been doing it for 30 years like this. I'm okay with it. We don't need to change anything. Does anybody ever work with anybody like that? That just can't get over the hump of something new, a new technique.
I have.
Yeah, we all have. Okay, that's the challenge of the affective learning. When somebody's values and beliefs, they affect their ability to learn. Then psychomotor is your hands-on. Okay. Learning a skill or task through practice or experience. So psychomotor would be trying to teach a new kid how to use their glucometer of a newly diagnosed diabetic, letting them practice with it. Right? Does that make sense? So we all have, like I said, I'm a psychomotor learner. Cognitive, you know, I'd rather I'd rather do hands-on, but we all have these three domains, everybody. So that has to be taken into effect when you're teaching. Okay, so going through the nursing process, what kinds of assessments would you do before you begin? You know, even though I'm skipping through this with regards to the nursing process, I want you to read through this section. Okay, I want you to read through the whole nursing process section. So assessment, what kinds of assessments will we do before we begin? Providing and reinforcing education to a patient family.
Find out
What do they know? What?
I was just saying, find out what they know first.
Yeah, what do they know? What are their goals? What are their deficits? What do they think about the condition or the topic? Are they motivated to learn? Are there any barriers? What are some barriers to learning? Cultural. One of the big barriers is low literacy. And I don't say that as a, you know, condescending, but most lay people are very health illiterate. They don't understand what's going on. It has to be explained to them in very simple terms. And again, cultural can be a big barrier. You know, we have to try and be knowledgeable about the culture, incorporate values, beliefs, practices as much as we can into the health plan. Okay, what if there are cognitive deficits? So those are some barriers. And then here in this bullet, it talks about health literacy is the ability to understand basic health information that allows people to make appropriate decisions about their health care. Right. So most all of our patients have very little experience in healthcare. Okay. And then the planning part. Now that we've got the assessment, right? Now it gives us the information we need to do to develop some goals. What are the behavioral goals? I mean, think of behavioral goals. Behavioral goals represent the desired change in behavior. Okay. And then intervention. How do we create an environment that's conducive to learning? Right? The patient, it needs to be comfortable for the patient. Well rested, without emotional disturbances. Medicate in advance if appropriate. Make sure if they need a hearing or visual aid. Right? The environment, as best as possible, should be quiet and conducive to education. Okay. So you can read through that part of it. Then evaluate. How do we evaluate the outcomes of patient education? I mean, we should be evaluating through the whole process, right? You know, the teach-back method. Teach-back method, where we have the patient or family tell you what they've learned in their own words. I'm sure you've heard about the teach-back method in your other classes. Have them return a demonstration of skills if we're teaching them how to use the glucometer, how to take their blood pressure at home. Ask specific questions about whether they understand. Ask for feedback. Was this helpful? Was it too much information? Was it too little information? Okay. So that is, we talked about barriers and reinforcing education. Okay. So does anybody have any questions? We covered environmental health, occupational health, health education, and some barriers to learning. But please go through, I didn't cover all of the notes. I kind of used talking points from it, but please go back and read those. Your week 6 notes, okay? I'm gonna give you guys 15 minutes to do the quiz. Take your time, there's 10 questions. I need everybody on camera while we do the quiz since it's proctored. Okay, and both quizzes are open for myself and Professor Kershaw. If you finish, we'll come back at, let's see, what time is it? 2 o'clock? Is it 2? Yeah. We'll come back at 2:15 and then we'll spend the last 15 minutes going over the quiz. Okay. If you finish and want to, don't go up, don't leave Zoom, but if you need to, you know, turn your camera off after you're done, that's fine. Just don't go off Zoom. And again, everybody needs to stay on camera. So pull up your quiz 4 and get going on it, and I'll see you in 15 minutes. And take your time doing it.
When I'm done with the quiz, can I use the restroom?
Of course, of course.
Can I use the restroom before the quiz?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Can I use the restroom before the quiz?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
How's everybody coming? Let's do about 2 or 3 more minutes. I can still tell that some of you are taking it, so try and wrap it up in the next 3 minutes, please. And make sure you hit submit when you click on it. I still have some people haven't submitted yet, so if you finish, submit it, please. Okay. How we all doing? Is
Good.
everybody done?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, why doesn't everybody come back on camera, please? And we will go through this quiz. I saw a lot of 10s in both classes, 9s and 10s. How did everybody do?
Very good.
I don't think I did well because I don't know. I'll be feeling like sometimes I'm rushed. Like when you guys are like talking, like constantly asking how we're doing, and you see a lot of people who didn't submit. Like so, I feel rushed. So I don't think I did. I didn't do horrible,
Well,
but I don't think I did good at all because I felt
Well,
rushed.
I didn't say anything until we had 4 minutes left. I think everything was quiet.
Very
Yeah, but
quiet.
like those 4 minutes or
Okay.
whatever time that was left, I was still like going through and looking at my questions. And I don't know, I just feel rushed. I felt rushed.
Okay.
And then having to listen to you asking like how, like, I don't know. It's just nothing against you, but it's
No,
like
I know. Okay. I
hearing
appreciate the
stuff,
feedback.
like it throws me off a little bit.
I finished, but if I didn't finish, I probably would have agreed
Okay.
because it would have stressed me out.
Okay.
Nothing against you. I agree.
No, I was just trying to give an update that we were about 4 minutes left. Okay. All right, let's go through the quiz. Let's see.
What does the term less likely mean?
Pardon me?
Less likely, what does that mean?
Hang on 1 second, Patrick, 1 second. Hey, Patrick, ask me that again, please.
Less likely, what does that mean?
Less likely. So how are you using it?
I use it as a term negative way, so maybe that's the reason why I get that answer wrong.
So less
know?
likely is is it in one of the questions?
Yeah.
Okay, let's
Probably
wait till let's get to that question. Okay, when we get to that question, I'll explain it, okay?
Yeah.
So here's the quiz, so you can follow along. You should know which ones you got wrong, if you got any wrong. So which statement is true, pardon me, regarding children and environmental health hazards? That's a correct answer.
2, their proximity to the ground increases.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is number 2 right? Why is that the correct answer?
Because that's the only one close to the answer to the question they ask you.
Okay.
Because if you have soil contamination and they pick stuff off the ground, they might put in their mouth and they're so curious. And it's just easier for them than for adults to pick up something. And they don't think about it as much as we do. Oh my God, it's shiny. And it might be something,
Okay. Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
Thanks for that explanation. That was good. Number
The last
2.
answer I just told you.
Oh, was that, is Patrick, is that the one you were talking about?
Yeah, they are less like, I didn't
Oh,
understand
they
that
are less
answer.
likely to experience neurological conditions due to exposure. Means they have a lower risk.
Lower week, yeah, right.
Lower risk.
I didn't get that.
Does that make sense now?
Yeah, that's the only one I get wrong.
Okay, lower risk. Okay, number 2, during a home health visit for a pregnant client, the nurse notes the client's husband regularly uses pesticides at work. Which nursing intervention is a priority? First and foremost, what's the key, one of the key words in this question?
the pregnant. And he works with the pesticide.
What kind of answer are you looking for, though?
A teaching.
A priority answer, right? It's
prevent
asking
basically.
which nursing intervention is priority. Okay, so this is a good example of a question that more than one answer could be correct, or they look okay, and you know it's not a select all that apply. And so if you get to a question that's only one answer is correct and more than one looks right, what should you do?
Well, if he works with the pesticide, how likely it is for him not to use it?
Break it down to 50-50.
Pardon me?
So
you want to find out which one's the most important one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one's
So
going to be more important to prevent it?
So the answer to my question a minute ago was go back and read the question again. Because if a couple of answers look alike, you may have missed an important word or a cue or a phrase in the question. This question is asking what is a priority. So what's the correct answer?
Remind husband to remove work clothes outside. Do not let his wife handle them.
Okay. Yeah, that's the priority answer. Number 2 is also could be correct, right? But it's not the priority. Recommend that he avoid using pesticides at home or outside in the yard. That's okay, but it's not the priority. Same with number 3, assess the family history for developmental delay or neurological problems. That's kind of in the ballpark, right? But you're looking for priority. And because there's a There's a woman who's pregnant in the house. We, at all costs, we need to try and protect her. So removing the work clothes outside the house and not letting the wife handle them is the priority. Okay, so everybody understand that. Okay, number 3, home health nurse works in a community with high rates of chronic complex illnesses and neurological disorders. Which environmental characteristic is a priority? Again, priority.
Manufacturing plant. Near the community's river.
All right, so we're talking, you have a couple of clues in the question. There's high rates of complex chronic illness and neurological disorders. So what environmental characteristic is a priority? So yes, presence of several manufacturing plants near the community's river. What's that potentially a sign of? Contaminated water? Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Number 4, the nurse is reinforcing education about the diabetic diet. Which client statement indicates a barrier to learning? So let's stop for a minute. What kind of question is this? A positive question or a negative question?
Negative.
Why?
Because it's basically something that's in the way of the person learning.
Exactly.
Coming to agreement.
So you're essentially looking for an answer for something that the patient states that's incorrect, right? So what's the right answer here?
The keto diet.
Right. And why is that the correct answer?
Because that's not what most likely doctor will recommend.
That's not a good diet for the diabetic patient, right?
Right.
Right. So if the patient says, I think I'd rather use a keto diet, well, they're going to need some re-education, right? And that's what it's asking for. That's a barrier. They've stated something that's incorrect. Or that needs to be
Instead of
re-educated.
this one, so it's obviously something that was not recommended.
Correct. Yep. Okay, number 5. Which nursing intervention will enhance the learning of a client who speaks English as a second language? Answer?
Recording.
Number 2.
Number 2. Why is number 2 the right answer?
That's the only way you can actually communicate with the patient. The rest you can't. It's just include the family. The family, they may, may be wrong. So.
Exactly.
That's his own language.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Does everybody understand that? That's important. This question's important. Okay. Somehow you have to get the information to them in their primary language. And here, with this particular question, the pamphlet will work.
In other words, speaking your mother's language.
Exactly. Yeah. The home health nurse is reinforcing education with the use of a glucometer. Which approach would be most effective? Again, another important word, most effective. Answer?
Have the patient teach you back.
Yep, we talked about the teach back method. So number 1, demonstrate the use of the glucometer and then observe the client doing a return demonstration. That's your teach back method. That's your psychomotor aspect or domain of learning. Okay, hands-on. Okay, anybody have any thoughts about that question? Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, number 7. Home health nurse is reinforcing education with an 8-year-old with type 1 diabetes. Which approach would be most effective?
The first one.
Why?
Because kids learn better if they're enjoying doing it.
Okay,
That's the most age appropriate.
exactly. Why are the other three incorrect? Why would number 2 be incorrect?
Too
They're
long
not
to
gonna be
teach
interested.
them. They're not
For an
gonna be
8-year-old.
sitting and listening to that.
What about number 3?
You want to make sure that the child understands
Right.
himself, herself, with the.
And believe it or not, 8-year-olds are old enough to be learning about their diabetes.
Yeah.
I had kids who were in preschool who were checking their own blood sugar with their glucometers, of course, with supervision. But 8-year-old is fully capable of starting to learn how to care for themselves for diabetes. Right?
And the child is your client. So like
Right.
that's who you should be making sure understands.
Correct. Which nursing intervention is a priority for a client who is not motivated to learn?
Establish trust.
Last one.
Everybody check D, number 4.
Yep.
You don't have a rapport with them. It's going to be hard to motivate them. Okay, good job. Number 9, the occupational nurse is caring for a client who reports lower back pain that is worse at the end of the day. Which nursing intervention is a priority?
Thus lifting technique.
Number 2.
Yep. We just went over that in class. We don't have it's not our place to do any of the other ones. Right? And number 10. Which statement is true regarding the scheduling of client education?
Should be done in their
More comfortable.
Right. We just talked about that. That was in your week 6 notes, right? It has to be a conducive environment for the patient, the client. Okay. And the other ones do not apply. Okay. Of course, it's not going to be convenient for us.
I have a question.
Sure, Patrick.
Any of those questions will be on the exam for next week?
Well, any of those ones on your exam? No.
Yes.
But
No.
But the topics will be on your exam. Right?
I mean, I thought you give it to us for a reason, because they will be on the exam. No, that's not correct.
That's not correct.
Okay.
The quiz questions are not on the exam. But the topics that the quiz questions cover, the concepts, are on the exam.
Okay.
And so I would highly suggest, like I said at the beginning of class, for you all to certainly review your study guide. Your study guide is an excellent initial summary of what's expected for you to know for the exam. If you can articulate your study guide, understand it, and be able to think ahead with applying that information to clinical practice, you'll be in the 90s on your exam. Promise.
So what
Okay.
exactly will be on the exam? What kind of topic? What exactly?
Well, look
What
at
should I be focused on?
Look at the study guide, Patrick. It has all the headings of what's going to be covered. Let's see.
I just want to have
Patrick,
freebie
have you
from
taken a look at your study guide yet?
Yes, but I just
Oh,
want to get it from you.
Oh, okay. Well, hang
Okay.
on a second.
All right. Because I just don't want to study too much. I just want to get your word for it,
You want to get my what?
Your input on the exam.
Oh, okay. Just trying to pull it up here.
They said you have the exam on your hand, right? Correct?
I'm sorry, what, Patrick?
You said you have the exam. You know the exam.
I do
You
know the
what's going-
exam.
Right. That's why I asked that question.
Hey, I'm gonna, hang on, Patrick, I'm trying to pull up the study guide. Can somebody pull up the study guide, please?
All right, I got the study guide, you know.
Okay,
I
so
have that.
hang on, Patrick. Could somebody please read me the first page of the study, or the second page, where it covers the topics of weeks 4, 5, and 6? What topics are being covered? There's 4, 5, and 6. Anybody have the study guide? I can go back to the announcement and pull it up. Hang on.
Yes, we have them.
I'm sorry?
Yes, we do.
Then be chapter 47, care of patients with anxiety, mood, and eating
No.
disorders.
Hang on one
No.
second. Yep, hang on one second.
Here,
Yep, I've got it pulled up now. Hang on one second. Here's what's going to be covered. Special vulnerable populations,
yeah,
which includes pregnant adolescents, LGBTQ, mental illness, alcohol, tobacco, and other drug problems. That's all of week 4 material. Week 5, excuse me?
yes.
Week 5 is hospice and palliative care, death and dying, faith and spirituality, and ethics. And then today we covered occupational health, environmental health, barriers to learning, and reinforcing health education. Does that answer your question, Patrick?
Yes, well, week 7 won't be on the test, right?
Correct.
Okay,
You'll be taking
4,
the
5.
exam in week 7.
Okay,
So in week 8, I'll cover the content for week 7 and 8.
good to go.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
Well, I hope everybody has a good rest of your Friday, and I hope you all have a fabulous weekend. Reach out to Professor Kershaw or myself if you need anything, okay?
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
weekend.
Bye.
All
You
right.
too.
All right. Bye-bye.